buying a home is already a big investment. Not only do you have to front an enormous amount of cash for a down payment, but you're also probably taking on a lot of debt. This is true no matter where you're planning to buy a home. And things only get trickier if you're planning to move somewhere far away from where you currently live. Let's face it, your current life might be in one place, but your mind might very well already be nesting and setting up shop somewhere else entirely. There could be any number of reasons why this might be true for you. Maybe you've got a great job offer in a city a few states away, or maybe you want to buy a vacation home in another state. It's certainly possible and exciting to purchase a house from far away. But doing so comes with a few very important caveats. You need to do more research than you think seems necessary or even sane, and plan ahead as much as possible. To protect yourself financially and emotionally, you need to mitigate risk on the front end way before you're locked into a contract. It's not like the unexpected is ever easy, but it can be downright catastrophic when you're juggling trying to buy a home. So, curious what it takes to buy a home in a land far, far away, or even just a few hours away? Well, listen in, because today we're talking about how to buy a home in a different city. Cue the intro. Hi everyone, Wendy Pennell here, your Move to Texas guide. I've been in Texas since 1975 and a realtor and then broker for over 13 years now. It's safe to say I know Texas and I know moving. Today, let's talk about the things you need to consider before making an offer on a home in a different city. The first important thing you need to decide is how much you can actually afford. While you may have the money to buy a larger home where you live now, you need to know the property values, price per foot costs, and even closing expenses can vary widely by location, even from a city to its suburbs. It's super important to get a realistic sense of how far you'll be able to stretch your money if you're buying in a city you aren't familiar with. You may find what you thought was a comfy budget where you're at now may not get you very much in your new city. Or then again, maybe it could get you a mansion. Who knows? You gotta get online and do that research. Now, housing market aside, your second big consideration is, what does living in that city cost? Even if you can technically afford, say, a $600,000 home in the location you're considering, you'll need to also think about a number of other factors before making that leap. Things you need to think about are crazy high property taxes, healthcare expenses, utility costs, or even the price of daycare. You need to be thinking about anything that could keep you from making your monthly mortgage payment. Once you've done the math of both your new mortgage and the cost of living, you may find it's worth considering a home in a different price range, or rethinking that locale altogether. Or maybe you won't. Again, gotta do that research. Big consideration number 3 is moving and travel expenses. The home buying numbers might tell one story, but travel and relocation costs can quickly rack up during the home search and home buying process, to a degree that could completely foul up your projected down payment. Before estimating how much you can pay for a house, figure out how many times you'll need to travel to and from your new city for showings, inspection, and closing. Since it's not wise or even technically allowed in some cases to rack up credit card debt while you're under contract, make sure to put money aside for travel beforehand. A home buying budget is never just the price of the home you're buying. If only things were ever that simple, right? If you're moving for a job, now might be a great time to consider whether or not your employer will cover relocation expenses. Depending on how much you have to contribute, you'll want to plan ahead by setting money aside for movers, transportation, and all those other fun moving costs. All right, moving on to number 4. You need to be thinking about what the different neighborhoods are like. I mean, seriously, what are they like? Buying a home doesn't have to mean you'll live there forever, But you'll want to ensure you're moving to an area you want to stay in for at least a few years, right? So try to visualize not just how you'll feel walking around your front porch with a cup of coffee, but how you'll feel walking around the neighborhood or commuting to work. You aren't just moving to a specific home, you're jumping into a life somewhere else. With this in mind, you should really consider the neighborhood of a home you're interested in before making an offer. Of course, you'll want to do your research on schools if that's a factor for you, and crime rate, but you'll also want to know what's around. Try checking out familywatchdog.com or Google Maps. Is the home near a busy intersection, railroad tracks, or a noisy highway? On the flip side, is it close to stores, restaurants, and other places you'd frequent? You need to think about concrete things like square footage and less tangible things like the overall vibe of a place. Both are super important. And when you're moving somewhere far away from where you currently live, you're not going to know unless you do some research. One thing I would caution you with to this regard is try to view the home and the neighborhood in person. Technology is awesome in how much it allows you to see online, but when it comes to buying a home, really try to view it in person if at all possible. Okay, on to number 5, and this one is admittedly self-serving. You need to use a realtor. Even if you're able to be physically present throughout the entire house hunting process, you want to hire a realtor. But for out-of-state or international moves, you definitely want to have a reliable agent to help facilitate the process. Sometimes staying in control of the important parts of your life is less about doing everything yourself and more about being an excellent project manager who delegates to a trusted team. A realtor needs to be part of your trusted team. Important point here, you need a realtor who represents you and you only. If you call the agent representing the home listing, that agent represents the seller, not you. Plus, sellers usually foot the bill for realtors' fees, so honestly, why wouldn't you? Okay, big thought number 6, what's included and what isn't in the sales material for the house? To make sure you're getting the most accurate info on a property before traveling to see it in person, double check with your agent about anything that might not be included in the listing. For example, some jurisdictions don't allow agents to report bedrooms in the basement, which would make a 4-bedroom home look like a 2-bedroom in a listing. Clearly, that's important info to have. In some locations where there aren't residential standards on how to measure or report, square footage may just be approximate. Okay, moving on to number 7. Will you and or your joint applicant have verification of employment in your new city? Most lenders require proof of income based on pay stubs, which is easy enough if you're purchasing a home in a city where you've been working for a while. But moving for a job you haven't started yet could throw a wrench in the whole process. For long distance moves that include changing jobs, many lenders will allow a contract for employment to suffice for income verification, but make sure you talk to your loan officer in advance. And number 8, be mindful of the tax situation in that city, state, or county. I know, looking at all the pictures of houses is way more fun, but you've got to deal with this too. Along with cost of living, it is essential to do your due diligence on the residential, sales, and employment taxes in your new city, state, or country. What are the property taxes like? Is there a sales tax? Is there a state income tax? This is the kind of information that will affect your budget in a very real and tangible way. Once again, you gotta do that research. Planning ahead is huge. Okay, item number 9, research the state's inspection disclosure laws. A home inspector's job is to warn a buyer about buyers and potential hazards in the home, but each state has its own licensing laws about what an inspector is required to disclose. So while a local inspector or seller might be required by law to tell you about past environmental damage on a home, another state's inspector might not. It's really important to be proactive here and ask directly. Prevent any issues with a future home by asking the inspector up front about what they will and won't be disclosing. So, are you feeling more confident now? Ready to charge out there and find that new home? Well, that is exactly what I'm here for, so give me a holler. Contact info right here. And listen, if you found this information helpful, hop on over to my YouTube channel. You will find many more just like it. Be sure and hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell so you don't miss out on any of the fun. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.